Baruch atah asher ha'anat melecha ha'olam asher kedeshani b'mitzvotav v'tzivani lehitativ latzitzit. Hey Polly, how are you? Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. How's life in England? You're in England, right? Am I remembering that correctly? I'm okay. It could be a lot worse. Yeah, you're in London. What part of the world is your family from? Were you born in London? I assume you were not. We're going to say some prayers today. I'm sure you know. Morocco. First generation. Have I told you that my mother was born in Hungary? She took me to Morocco when I was very small, when I was 10. On a tourist trip. It was nice. Yeah, my mother came to the United States when she was 3 because there was a war. Russia invaded. Yeah, I did like it. There's a rug in my room that she bought me back then in Marrakesh. Yeah. I mean, like, I was a 10-year-old boy, right? Like, my experience of it was completely modulated by, like, being a child and my mother's particular flavor of tourism. But yeah, it was a really special place. Hey, Angst71. Yeah, you've not seen my post in a while. It is not because I have not been posting. It's because for whatever reason, the algorithmic gods have decided to stop favoring me. It's extremely disheartening, and it makes me think that I should quit. And I almost certainly will, because I don't want to be spending my entire career beholding to the whims of an algorithm. I was doing so well. Yeah, when you met me, right, like I, had sort of really fantastic growth in 2021, and then it just tapered off. And I do not know how to change it, right? So it's very frequent that somebody comes into this room and says, I haven't seen your post in so long. And I say, well, that's, I've been trying. I've been trying, in many ways, I've been trying harder than I was trying. Yeah, it's, God, like, I don't really know how to describe to you the emotional, the last video you saw was the one about my dad. Yeah, that was a couple months ago. I've posted like 20 videos since then. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here now, Zoe. Yeah, it's like, it's genuinely a problem that I cannot get traction on the app. Like, it means that I cannot invest my time into making content here. And that makes me really sad, because I really love hanging out with you all. But, like, I'm still doing this. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Not many other people did, right? Like, maybe it was a little heavy-handed to try to make a film about Gaza that wasn't really about Gaza. Right, but that's what was happening at the time. I was at a music festival, thinking about, the way that bodies move. just gotta quit being lazy and seek you out better. I mean, yeah, that would be lovely if you did that, Angst, but not very likely. Like, you can check out the link in my bio and join my Discord server, and then you'll get notified whenever I go live. But you know, it's not a growth strategy to expect people to do that. Yeah. What's the setup today? I mean, this is my standard live stream setup. We're going to say some words. We're going to say Shema and Vahafta, some words from the book of Deuteronomy, that remind us that the catastrophes of the past inform the catastrophes of the present. I'm still grieving. I will be saying Kaddish for Gaza every day for a long time, right? This is not going to be over anytime soon. And it's heartbreaking. So yeah, we'll say Kaddish. We're going to read from the book of Nehemiah. The book of Nehemiah was written about 100, maybe 200 years after the return of the Babylonians from exile. And it recounts what happens when an oppressed people are allowed to return to the place that they called home because of a war. An empire exchanges hands, and the enemy of your enemy is your friend. And all of a sudden the king of Persia says, sure, you can go back there, you can take what used to be yours. It doesn't matter that other people have it now. It doesn't matter that other people live there. No, yeah, you lived there a century ago. Go back. It'll work out great. So, we'll read from the book of Nehemiah. Thank you, Polly. Is there something I should call you that isn't like your immediate username? I still don't completely understand why you change your username all the time. Like if you didn't have a consistent profile picture, I wouldn't necessarily know who you are. Yeah, so we can begin. Let's start with a tone, and then we'll shift into Kaddish. I mean, you do you. You know, you can be on social media however you like, right? Like, obviously you have your reasons. So, give you a name? I mean, my first memory of you was of a video that you posted doing like this really beautiful red eyeliner. And I still have not been able to find liquid liner that looks like that. Like that's my first memory of you. Makeup video. I don't know. So, I'm going to take a deep breath in, and we're going to exhale with a low tone. Hold it for as long as we can as a kind of vocal warm-up. Good morning, Drew. Nice to see you. I assume it's a brand that doesn't advertise to white girls. That was my assumption. Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate that. Twisty pencils. Like, honestly, if you sent me an Amazon link, I probably would check it out, because I haven't been able to find anything that has that consistency. Like, the colorful eyeliners I've been able to find, they have this kind of like flaky paint feeling, so the color's pretty good, but they're really difficult to get off my face, and I'm worried about doing them on my lower lash line, because I think they would irritate me. Yeah. Like, honestly, if you sent me a link, I would probably buy it, because we're all influencers. We all get to influence one another. So, We're going to say some old words now. Words that were written 2,500 years ago, when the king of Persia allowed the Babylonian exiles to return to their homeland, and a priestly caste emerged to govern the territory, and they wrote down words to assert their dominance in the land and to integrate their diverse ethnic identity into one consistent understanding of who they were. And that is why when we say the Shema, we say, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. Listen, Israel, Yahweh and El are one. These gods from the north and the south, Yahweh and Allah, right? El, Allah, they're one God. Right? That's what the theology says. Despite the differences of history and semiotics, they're the same thing. All is one. And we can continue on and say, Vahafta et anat Elohecha uv'chol lebavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'adecha v'chayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher noechi mitzavcha hayom levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'vitecha v'lechtecha chavaderch uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha v'kshartam le'ohud al yadecha v'chayu letotavot b'ninecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Tap, tap. That translates as, you shall love Yahweh Eloheinu with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And these words that I am reciting to you today, teach them to your children and recite them when you wake up and when you go to bed and when you are traveling and when you are at home. And you shall bind them as a symbol on your hand, and let them serve as a sign on your forehead, and inscribe them on the doorposts of your houses and on your gates. And the next part is the most important, okay? Listen. Listen up. This is why we say these words every day, right? The next part of the book of Deuteronomy, we can call it a land acknowledgement, right? And so remember the context. These were Babylonian priests who had returned after a genocide. They returned to their land. And in order to return, they had to steal it from people who lived there. They had to build walls. And they wrote this. They wrote, V'chaya ki v'yachayu Elohecha el ha'artz asher nisba levetecha le'avram le'yitzchak le'Yaakov לתת לך עברים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית, ובתים מלאים כל טובה אשר למילאת, וברות הטובים אשר לא עשת, כערים וזיתים אשר נטעת, והלכת ושבת. הישמר לך פן תשכח את יראה אשר תשכח מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. Thank you, Polly, for the roses. The consistent roses. It keeps the numbers up. Have you noticed? Right, like when you give me gifts, like the numbers in the stream go up. Like I really appreciate it quite deeply. Thank you. Thank you so much. So how do we translate that land acknowledgement? When Yahweh Eloheinu, when Yahweh Allah, Eloheinu, brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to assign to you, and Ishmael too. Great and flourishing cities that you did not build. Houses full of all good things that you did not fill. Hewn cisterns that you did not hew. Vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. And you eat your fill. Take heed that you do not forget Yahweh, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. That God that gave you these stolen goods, remember, he also put you in bondage, right? His divine profile is that of trauma. And everything you have can be taken away from you in a moment. And don't forget for a moment that it was stolen. Don't forget. Remember. Take heed. Take heed that you do not forget. I don't want a quick TikTok either, Polly. And, I mean, we'll see. I've set aside enough, here's an inside look into the life of a aspiring content creator. I've set aside enough money that I can make TikTok full-time for the next year or so, give or take, before I have to start doing other work. And so we'll see, right? Like I'm going to make as much content as I can make in a year. And I'm not going to worry too much about the numbers. And then I'm going to look back and I'm going to see how much growth the channel had and how much income I've made, and I'll see if it's sustainable. And like, if the rates of the past are an indication of the rates of the future, it will not be sustainable. Like, I will literally not be able to afford to continue to do this work. And that's kind of heartbreaking, right? Because like, I want to communicate with you, I want to reach you. But I'm looking at that reality, and it's not like a thing that's up and coming, right? I have an entire year, right? I have an entire year of creative freedom, and I'm gonna go to Palestine. Well, I mean, if they let me in, right? Who knows? There might be a war on many fronts, not just in Gaza, and then I will not be able to go. But if they will let me in, I will go, and I will make films about the catastrophe that is happening, and we'll see. Like, we shall see. So yeah, you'll have me for another year, don't you worry. But yeah, I mean, it's really scary to think like, you know, I've worked for the last decade of my life to try to get myself onto a platform that I thought could sustain me, and I find one, and it turns out that what they want me to do is ask for gifts on live and sell camera mounts and makeup on TikTok Shop, and like, that's not what I'm here to do, right? Yeah, I'm here to make art, you know, we'll see. We shall see. You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing. Like, honestly, like, your gifts, like, they make a huge difference, right? Like, if there were 10 people who were behaving the way that you were, if there were 100 people behaving the way that you were, then this would be sustainable for me. Currently it's not, but we'll see. A lot can happen in a year, you know? Neoliberalism is the absolute pits. That's true. Yeah. What should we do? Should we tear down the walls? Should we replace capitalism with some sort of fantasy? I don't know what to do, right? Like, I live in an income sharing commune. You'd think I'd just be able to do this, but it's complicated. Thanks, Polly. So, if you would like to sustain me in a more long-term way, you can check out the link in my bio, join my Patreon. That is by far the best way to encourage me to continue. But I don't want this stream to be about me. I can't help it. Like, I literally can't help it because of the shape of the platform. Like, I'm obligated to talk about myself, but like, I'm grieving. Like, I'm grieving a catastrophe that I never expected to happen in my lifetime. Except I did, right? I could see the writing on the wall for years. First time I went to Palestine, I could tell, right? There's a catastrophe waiting to happen in Gaza. Everybody knew it, right? For years and years. It was a ticking time bomb. Well, you know, they say never again, right? I grew up in synagogue, people saying never again, but it's happening again. It's happening again right now. Right now, as I sit in this very warm, comfortable room, right, talking to you about the challenges of a meager content creator on TikTok, and there's a genocide happening. So, you know, the kind of challenges that I experience pale in comparison. So, let's read an old book now. Yeah, it happened in Armenia a week before. 2 weeks before? I think it was 2 weeks before, but yeah, and it happened in Myanmar a few years before that. Like, yeah, it keeps fucking happening. Like, the worst thing that humans possibly can do to one another, and it keeps happening. Yeah. Yeah. There are literally no Armenians left in Nagorno-Karabakh. Yeah, it's, yeah, and like, you know, why am I talking about Gaza this way and I wasn't talking about Armenia 2 weeks ago? I don't know, right? Because I'm not Armenian. I'm Jewish. But there are Armenians in Jerusalem, right? There are refugees from the previous Armenian genocide in Jerusalem. From that time that the Ottoman Empire collapsed and caused a century of ethnic cleansing. No, I know you're not blaming me, Will. Like, I blame myself. Like, I don't know what kind of orientation to have here. You're from a very Armenian part of America. I didn't know that. You mean Medford? Yeah, I mean, I've dumpstered at an Armenian grocery store in Medford. In Watertown. Yeah. Yeah, there's a really great Armenian grocery store that I dumpstered at. The honk video that I posted on Discord right before honk has footage of of me getting detained by the cops outside of an Armenian grocery store. So I did know that, actually. In any case, let's read an old book from the Book of Nehemiah. Like, I don't know what orientation to have, right? Like, I do gotta make a living for myself, and also, I don't want to make a living on being horrified. Watertown has the most Armenians after LA. That's so interesting. Because when I was in LA, I noticed there were so many Armenians around. I was like, what's this? And they had the best grocery stores. Like, there were all of the Armenian grocery stores were walking distance from where I was, and I, like, went shopping at an Armenian grocery store every day. Like, such good food. Like, cheap, good food. It was great. Alright. So, Nehemiah? Should we read the book of Nehemiah? Let's read what happens when, the British Empire takes control of the Ottoman Empire and says, the Jews may return. When Balfour declares, you may return. When King Cyrus declares, you may return. What happens? Well, this is the narrative of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, when I was in the fortress of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, together with some Judahites, arrived, and I asked them about the Jews, the remnant who had survived the captivity, and about Jerusalem. And they replied, the survivors who have survived the captivity there in the province are in dire trouble and disgrace. Jerusalem's wall is full of breaches. Its gates have been destroyed by fire. You hear that? They aspired to build a wall. This is very important. The wall is full of breaches. Its gates have been destroyed by fire. Does that sound familiar? They tried to build a wall, and the people they were keeping out with the wall didn't like it, and they breached the wall. Imagine that. Why on earth? Why on earth would they try to do that? Incomprehensible. Okay, shall we continue on? I cannot read this without dripping irony. Like, it's just... so the wall, they tried to build a wall around the city, and it was breached by fire. When I heard that, I sat and I wept, and I was in mourning for days, fasting and praying to the God of heaven. I said, O Eternal One, God of heaven, great and awesome God, who stays faithful to the covenant with those who show love and keep the commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to receive the prayer of your servant that I am praying to you now, day and night, on behalf of the Israelites, your servants, confessing the sins that we Israelites have committed against you, sins that I and my father's house have committed. We've offended you by not keeping the commandments, the laws, and the rules that you gave to your servant, to Moses. Be mindful of the promise you gave to your servant Moses. If you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. Remember Yahweh, take heed, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. If you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. But if you turn back to me, faithfully keep my commandments, even if you are dispersed or at the ends of the earth, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place where I have chosen to establish my name. Okay, they shall return. For they are your servants and your people whom you redeemed by your great power and your mighty hand. O Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who desire to hold your name in awe. Good morning, Sadvi. Grant your servant success today and dispose his master to be compassionate towards him. I was the king's cupbearer at the time. So, the cupbearer to the king, right? It says, O King of Persia, O Joe Biden, O Harry Truman, O Balfour, King of England, please let my people return to the land that you have recently conquered. Pay no mind to the people who live there already. Let us return. So, in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, Harry Truman, wine was set before him. I took the wine and I gave it to the king. I had never been out of sorts in his presence. And the king said to me, How is it that you look bad, though you are not ill? It must be bad thoughts. I was very frightened. But I answered the king, May the king live forever. How should I not look bad when the city of the graveyard of my ancestors lies in ruins, and its gates have been consumed by fire? And the king said to me, What is your request? With a prayer to the God of heaven. And I answered the king, If it please the king, if your servant has found favor with you, send me to Judah, to the city of my ancestors' graves, to rebuild it. Let me rebuild the walls of that ancient city. With the consort seated at his side, the king said to me, How long will you be gone, and when will you return? So it was agreeable to the king to send me, and I gave him a date. And then I said to the king, If it please the king, let me have letters to the governors of the province beyond the river, directing them to grant me passage until I reach Judah. And likewise a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's park, directing him to give me timber for roofing of the gatehouses and the temple fortress and the city walls, and for the house I shall occupy. The king gave me these, thanks to God's benevolent care for me. And the king says, Sure, have as much resources as you want. You can rebuild walls with them. Yeah, you can build walls to keep the people out. Sounds good. What could go wrong? When I came to the governors of the province beyond the river, I gave them the king's letters, and the king also sent army officers and cavalry with me. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant heard, it displeased them greatly that someone had come, intent on improving the condition of the Israelites. And I arrived in Jerusalem, and I was there 3 days. And I got up at night, and I and a few men with me, telling no one what my God had put my mind to do for Jerusalem, taking no other beast than the one which I was riding. I went out by the valley gate at night towards the jackal's spring and the dung gate, and I surveyed the walls of Jerusalem that were breached and its gates consumed by fire. What do you mean, Spencer? What on earth do you mean? So I went up the wadi by night, surveying the wall, and entering again by the valley gate I returned. The prefects knew nothing of where I had gone or what I had done, since I had not yet divulged it to the Jews, the priests, the nobles, and the prefects, nor the rest of the officials. This is the book that the fundy Christian churches I grew up in used to exclude cruel borders. Yes, Bluebon, but I don't actually believe that the book excuses it. Like, I think the book is incredibly transparent about what it's doing. Like, yes, Nehemiah frames what he's doing as a kind of triumph, but like they don't hide the they don't hide like the catastrophe of it. Yeah. Like, you read these old books and they're extremely transparent about what they're about, right? They're not trying to hide their intent. Very different interpretations than Jewish scholars. Certainly than me. No, I'm not reading the Quran. Something similar. We're reading the Book of Nehemiah. The Book of Nehemiah, about the time after the Babylonian exile, when the Empire of Persia conquered the Empire of Babylon, similar to the way that the Empire of Britain conquered the Empire of the Ottomans. And the Empire of Britain looked around and said, "Oh, look, there were people who just experienced a genocide, and we're some conquerors, you know. And the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So why don't we send them back, and they can do some good administrative work for us. They can control the territory that we've conquered on our behalf. We can give them resources, and they'll control the territory because they have a very strong religious connection to the land, right? So they have a lot of will to control the territory." Yeah, I mean, the attitude in the United States is very, very different than the attitude in Israel, right? Because in the United States, we are insulated from those people who experience the violence, and so we can see some larger patterns, right? But if you felt like you had to fear for your life every day, you might read this and interpret it more literally, you know, or more righteously, perhaps, that this is what is right and good, rather than a documentation of a different kind of catastrophe. Yeah. So. I said to the people of Jerusalem, you see the bad state we are in. Jerusalem lying... Oh, this chapter is long. Oh, no. There's one more thing. You see the bad state we're in. Jerusalem lying, its ruins and its gates destroyed by fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall. Let's build the wall. Build the wall of Jerusalem and suffer no more disgrace. And I told them of my God's benevolent care for me, also of the things that the king had said to me, and they said, let us start building. They were encouraged by God's benevolence. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite served, and Geshem the Arab heard, they mocked us. Geshem the Arab mocks the wall builders. Interesting. They mocked us and held us in contempt. Imagine why. What is this that you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king? And I said to them in reply, the God of heaven will grant us success, and so we, God's servants, will start building. But you have no share or claim or stake in Jerusalem. You hear that? What does Nehemiah say to Geshem the Arab? You have no share or claim or stake in Jerusalem. So I will build a wall to keep you out of it. Fuck, man. Like, I don't... Like, I did not write this book. Like, you know, Nehemiah wrote this book. Like, there's... I was reading an interesting article about the construction of the book of Nehemiah, and it specifically said that it believes that chapters 1 through 3, which we just read, the first person accounts where Nehemiah refers to himself in I, it's probably the oldest. Like, Nehemiah was constructed by a Levitic priest in Jerusalem several hundred years, maybe 100 or 200 years after the temple and the walls were rebuilt, right? This is a piece of Second Temple literature. But he was very likely using primary sources that come from an earlier time, although he certainly collated it with his own priestly agenda. And you can see the priestly agenda straight as day, right? Should I read that line one more time? The God of heaven will grant us success, and so we, God's servants, will start building, but you have no share or claim or stake in Jerusalem. So he says. Yeah. So now we will say Kaddish. We'll say Kaddish for all those who are excluded by walls. Good morning, Congress. Wakey, wakey. Say Kaddish for those who wish to tear walls down and are met with bombs when they do so. Yeah. Kaddish for Gaza. Good morning, Dr. Punk. It's grief time. You're right in time for grief time. Thanks for being here with me as I grieve. God, I'm grieving. So... Kaddish is a prayer of grief. It's a prayer of mourning. Kaddish has been said since this time, right? Since this time, since the exiles returned to Jerusalem and they mourned its destruction, since this time till today, people have said Kaddish in the face of genocide. And so we say it once more. It need not matter if we are the experiencers, if we are the victims or the perpetrators, right? It's part of the same cycle. Kaddish for both, whether you're at one end of the stick or the other. We say Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shema Rabbah B'yama divrachiyate v'yamlich malchute b'chayachon v'yamechon v'chayedu kol beit Yisrael B'agala v'zman kariv v'yamru. Amen. Yehi Shema Rabbah mevarach li'olam olmei olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yirman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalash v'yit kudisha b'rechu Leila min kol birchata b'shirata tush v'chata b'nechimata d'yamiran v'yama v'imru. Amen. Yesh lama Rabba amin Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yachol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav huya aseh shalom aleinu v'yachol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav huya aseh shalom aleinu v'yalechol Yisrael v'imru ho v'imru. Amen. Thanks for being here. So, Lightning McQueef, you might think that posting a bunch of Israeli flags, you're being a troll, but I I don't find those symbols offensive, right? Like, I see from this text, like, horrifying as parts of it are, like, I understand why Israel is here, and why the people of Israel and why the Zionists in Israel behave the way they do. I don't think that their behavior is unexplicable. Right? Like, I'm not here to advocate for the destruction of the state of Israel. But maybe the destruction of its walls. Maybe. You're very welcome, Blue Bond. I'm not actually going to leave. I'm quite hungry. I have some rice in my rice cooker. Goose, that may literally be true, right? Like, I've been reading the headlines. I acknowledge that may literally be true. I mean, maybe it wasn't Hamas, maybe it was the PIJ, and maybe they intended to do it, or maybe it was an accident because they're using low-quality rockets, right? Like, it basically, from my position over here, it is impossible for me to know, and I don't want to speculate, other than the fact that, like, yes, that's plausible. I don't think it matters, right? Like, zoom out, right? Like, zoom out a little bit. Like, why is this violence occurring? Palestine is jealous that they are the chosen ones. And who chose them? The Queen of England? Balfour? Joe Biden? Harry Truman? Who did the choosing? Hitler? Like, God. God did the choosing? Which one? Yahweh or El? Or Adonai? Or Allah? Which one? Right? Like, yeah. The only one, Yahweh. But Yahweh has many names, right? He has many names and many ethnicities. Alright, I can continue to bicker with you if you like, but I'm gonna get some rice first. Point being, I don't mind that you post a bunch of Israeli flags in the chat. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, but I'm not offended by their presence. The Canaanite interpretation, the Jewish interpretation, I go for the Canaanite interpretation, because you know what? Asherah never built any fucking walls. Not a single one. So, maybe we should pay more attention to her, right? Mother of serpents. I am Jewish. I'll be back in 30 seconds, okay? Here's the rice. Yeah, Hasem is no set gender, but the Canaanite one is male. Isn't that interesting, right? As our theology of Yahweh has matured, his gendered nature has become less apparent. But, you know, Yahweh is the wall builder, the bringer of military might. It's totally a dude. Totally a dude. I should support a genocide because the genocide is being done in my name, because the people that are doing it think that it will make me safer in the world. It does not make me safer in the world. Like, maybe I would feel differently if I lived in Israel, right? Like, if I lived in Israel and was, like, quite literally under threat of attack, right? And I knew that there were people on all sides of the walls that I'd built for myself who actually would kill me if they got on the other side. Like, yeah, maybe then I would think that these military interventions were making me safer. But as an American Jew, they do not make me safer, right? They make me more at risk, right? Because people associate me and my identity with genocidal intent. And I don't like that, right? That hurts me. Yeah, Israel's actions make me feel less safe as a Jew, not more. And I recognize that as a feature of geography, right? Like, I completely understand that if I grew up in Israel, I would be telling you something different, right? My experience as a Jew in America is not the same thing as a Jew in Israel. And, right, so I have different opinions. Savage actions. I mean, just sort of like very simply, savage actions do not deserve savage responses. It's pretty simple, right? There was a Palestinian once who talked about turning the other cheek in response to brutality. I think he was a fairly famous Palestinian. Maybe he was a famous Jew. Which one? Maybe both. Will you tell me more about your Jewish community, Bluebon? That's very interesting. I'm curious what the conversion process was like. I mean, many people in Israel would like a monarchy. Like, I don't think that's a joke. Like, hey, Savannah. I'm doing okay. Like, I've heard it stated very explicitly that, like, democracy may not be the proper form of government for Israel if it insists on, you know, being a religious state the way that it is. Forgive those who wrong you. Yeah, forgive those who wrong you. Na'amod. Let me look that up. Na'amod. Na'amod.home.uk. Cool. What an interesting organization. The Tribal Confederacy. Yes, but if you had a Tribal Confederacy, Hibiscus, you would be very vulnerable to other forms of government that have a more concentrated military might, and then they might conquer you and colonize you. So you better do the conquering and colonizing yourself. Otherwise, someone else is going to do it for you. Right, that's the challenge. Hello, Olivia. Thank you for being here. You know, like, I wouldn't recommend using TikTok live streams as your source for information on a topic like this. Like, all you're gonna get is emotions. Like, here you can see my emotions clearly. Like, clearly I'm horrified. Like, I should probably make better educational resources about it. Like, not that it would make much of a difference, but yeah, part of the problem is the way that social media distributes information is like, it perpetuates genocide. It doesn't prevent it. What do I think about Palestine? I've been talking about Palestine all morning. It's all I can think about. Like, literally all I can think about is Palestine, Hira. I think many things. I think many things about Palestine. Olivia, if you want some good sources, there's some really great work that was done by Vox. And, like, yes, be aware that Vox is a left-leaning media outlet. But, like, they give context. Like, they do provide context. There's also a crash course Crash Course World History that addresses this very well. And these are all like short 10-minute videos that you could, get you up to speed. Yeah, there's a protest in my community too, which I probably won't go to, but I may. Interesting that they would schedule a protest on Shabbat. Right, because that means that they will only get a subsection of Jews, those that are willing to protest on Shabbat. That must be frustrating for you. This stream is so interesting. Like I get such a cross section of people, and there are more Jews here than ever before. Like usually my live stream is not filled with so many Jewish people. That's great. I guess I'm reaching who I need to be reaching. What am I holding up? It's seaweed. Seaweed and rice. No meat. No meat currently. Sometimes I eat meat in the morning, but right now it's just seaweed and rice. Yeah, Drew, normally there are many more Christians in this stream. Like, do you remember when someone would come in every day and tell me that Jesus was my savior? And here I am today, like, actually quoting Jesus, or referencing him at least. Blue one, what do you mean, how are you doing? Yes, the tattoo on my hand is an Ouroboros. Specifically, it's Cleopatra's Ouroboros. From Chrysopoeia of Cleopatra. She was an alchemist, potentially a Jewish alchemist, it's not clear, but there was a large Jewish community in Alexandria at the time that she was writing. An exilic community, Roman exile community. I'm very Cleopatra-esque. Oh, you have no idea, Will. Maybe one day I'll tell you more about it. Yeah, me too. Me fucking too. I want to go to Elephantine so badly. Like, I was thinking about it quite seriously, because I was supposed to be in Tel Aviv next month. But I don't know if I will be able to go to Tel Aviv next month. And if I can't go to Tel Aviv, maybe I'll go to Elephantine. Like, I strongly considering it. Canaanism? I mean, I don't, if you're referring to some sort of modern religious movement, no. Although, like, I practice it, right? Like, this is my Canaanism. I have an altar to Asherah that I use every day, right? Like, I'm a Canaanist, right? Like, we should call the land Canaan, and we should share it. And, bring back Baal worship and Asherah worship. It'd be great. But what are you referring to, Will? Are you referring to an actual movement? Yeah, movement by Israelis to basically revive Canaanite paganism. Like, fuck yeah. Like, that is what I want. That is, like, quite literally what I want. Verbatim. Like, animal sacrifice, the whole deal. Yeah. Anat, Kaddish, all of them. Right? That's in my name, Kaddish. Of course I want to worship Kaddish. Yes, I still have dysphoria. Sometimes it's really awful. Yeah, so here's Kaddish. Canaanism, right here. There she is. I want to be like that, right? I want to give Egyptian gods boners. They're also hyper-nationalist. But, like, my understanding of Cananism, like, by definition, cannot be a nationalist religion, right? Because it's polytheistic and incorporates gods from Egypt and from Syria, and from Jordan, like, What is Leontopolis? I've not heard of that one. Monolatris, you recognize the other spirits exist, but you do not worship them. That's very classical of you, Hibiscus. I mean, there were far more than 4 temples. Like, there were 2 temples that, like, declared themselves to be the only temples worth worshipping. But, I mean, there were temples in Samaria. Like, prior to Hezekiah, there were temples everywhere. Yeah. They were nationalists first and came to Cananism from that. You're talking about main temples that declared themselves to be the only ones specifically. Ah, okay. There's a reading of the Book of Acts that can be read as an Apollo being real, but being a demon. Oh, I mean, yeah, also, like, references in the New Testament to Beelzebub are, like, literally references to Baal. Like, quite literally references to Baal. Like, Satan is identified with Baal, like, quite literally. Yes, the Samaritans still have animal sacrifices. In Nablus, they sacrifice sheep and goats for Pesach every year in Nablus. There's, like, you can look up footage of it online. Like, it's incredible. Like, there's a very interesting film called The Last Samaritan, about an Israeli woman who left her group and became a singer. But, yeah, it's really fucking cool. Leontopolis was a temple made by the exiled priest Onias IV. Yes, Mount Gezerim is where their temple used to be, and they still do sacrifices on Mount Gezerim. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that tracks, Will, right? And, like, that image of Moses' staff turning into a snake and consuming the Pharaoh's staff that has turned into a snake, right? Like, that image is quite literally in the Baal cycle, snakes consuming themselves. And, of course, I paid attention to that image, right? Like, that image is a deeply Egyptian image. Tell me about the priest Onias IV. When was he exiled? What time period are we talking about? Is this like Second Temple period? Yeah, Ashra and Shekinah are the same, so Hashem is a hermaphrodite deity goddess. Yeah, Hydrangea, let me get a book for you. This book, Raphael Patai, it's rather dry, right? Raphael Patai, like, he writes encyclopedic texts, but that thesis is in here, quite literally. Like, the chapter progression specifically talks about how Asarte and Anath, right? Asher and Asarte and Anath give way to the cherubim, and then eventually to Shekinah in rabbinic Judaism, right? Like, it's there's a whole book about it. Like, yeah, so you don't have to, like, think it as a like, oh, there's some similarities. Like, no, they're, like, scholars say you are correct. My lives help your anxiety so much. Well, thank you, Belle. Yeah, Raphael Patai, he's a really good historian. So he wrote this book, Hebrew Goddesses, and I have another book by him on that shelf about Hebrew alchemists, right? That's where I learned about this symbol. Like, as I said, it's dry, right? Like, it's not narratively compelling, but it lays out the evidence very clearly that the Shekinah is an evolution of Ashra, in the same way that Mary is, you know? Right? Like, goddess worship didn't leave the Levant. It just changed its names. Gosh, Blue Bond, I wish you were telling me about stuff in New York City. Like, that's great. Maybe I wish I was in London and could engage with all these Jewish organizations. Yalala is a great UK org. I'm going to look up that one too. This is great. Yalala. Oh, okay. Kohenet Priestess Institute, but in the UK. Cool. All right, I am familiar with this group. Their Shabbat services are fire. Also explains the women didn't commit idolatry as strongly. What do you mean, Hibiscus? As if Shekhinah is Asherah, they never did anything wrong. They have online services? Okay, I need to go soon. But can you please join the Discord server, please? Like, you have resources. I want them. Please check out the link in my bio and join the Discord server and send me links to these things. Otherwise I will lose them, and I don't want to lose them. Like, I really want to follow up with this. Very much. Oh, hey look, Discord is booping. Someone claiming that Confucius and Buddha were used by God. I know, you're in the UK. If there's online services, I would love to attend. Yeah, if Yalala does online Shabbat service, I want to attend them. I guess I'm on their website. I can just do it. I don't need you to send me a link. But, like, join the Discord server anyway. I would love to chat with you. Rabbis say that women didn't willingly worship the golden bull, and that's why we get Rosh Chodesh. Interesting. You know, like, there's a really interesting archaeological site in the West Bank called the Bull Site, where they... Oh, you're Chell. We spoke about deportation. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't put two and two together. Yes, Hibiscus. I have a Discord. There's a link in my bio. Hey, look. It's really going off. Boop, boop, boop. Where is the best place to put links? Just in chit chat. Or, well, actually, specifically for this, there's a channel called What is Prayer? Here, I'll link to it. What is Prayer? There we are. It is not obvious. No, because it's your dog's TikTok. Yeah, okay. Let me stay around for a couple more minutes. This is really nice. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for helping me feel not so alone. That's nice. Your presence makes me feel more connected. Thank you. I am back on the farm thing, Jamie. Yes, I suppose the last time you saw me, I was in Los Angeles. Hey, Tony. I was visiting a friend in Los Angeles in September. But Onias IV was son of Onias III, the heir of the Zadok line, who built a temple in 145 Z. So a Maccabean priest. Interesting. I haven't seen Non Live in forever, but I've been here, Vulture Juice. It's not me. It's not you. It's the algorithm. It's the algorithm keeping us apart. How disastrous. Thanks, Omar. Make more cool mushroom, goat, and dumpster diving videos, please. Working on it, Jamie. I'm working on it. Who's part of Egyptian Judaism? Thanks, Flupon. Alright, I'm gonna go, but this has been a really fantastic stream. Thank you all for all the resources and the careful thinking. I know you want to try doing a fertility ritual. You've intimated that to me many times. We'll work on it, maybe one day. Yeah, so check out the link in my bio. The Discord is free, available to anybody who wants to join. Just click the link above and you can join the Discord. I also have a Patreon. And those who support me on Patreon really help me do this every day. So thank you, those of you who are able to do that. And I will see you again another time. So farewell. Thanks. I love you all.